Hey everyone, welcome back to Movie Husband. It's just Geoff here. We don't always get to react to or review every single movie that comes out, but we do tend to see a lot of movies, even if we don't have time to review them. So I figured I would do a little movies we missed segment here for some of the 2025 releases that we haven't had the chance to talk about. So let's start off with The Monkey. The Monkey is a really interesting follow up for Osgood Perkins. He made the viral sensation Longlegs, which became a box office hit and had all of this insane marketing that I'm sure that you've heard about. I have seen some people say that Longlegs had a sense of humor, but I admit I really didn't read it that way. It's a film that to me seemed like it was crafted portentously and seriously. Like it was trying to prove artistic merit, and it did have a lot of it, to be fair. I like Longlegs, and I felt similarly about The Blackcoat's Daughter. That film, I think, is even harder to find a sense of humor in. That's one of Perkins' prior films. At least Longleg ends with a really funny Hail Satan line, but The Monkey is pretty distinctly a comedy, I would say. Not much to misinterpret there. I'm very far from the first person to say this, but I think it has more in common with an episode of Looney Tunes than it does with a prestige horror film. The movie doesn't have much of a plot. I mean, it kind of does, but really the whole thing is a mechanism for making a variety of funny and kind of intelligently staged deaths. Almost like Final Destination meets the Three Stooges, but in that way, the events of the movie feel as if they're casually limping along towards a foregone conclusion. I understand it's a comedy, it's a horror comedy. There should be some kind of tension, right? Or mobility with the story beyond seeing how the next person is going to die. It puts you in an odd position as a viewer because to me, the pure joy of the film is seeing what elaborate and insane way someone is going to meet their end. I think there should be a little bit more here in that regard. The pure joy of the film is the deaths. We have fishhooks, realtor signposts, people's heads being caught on fire, cheerleaders in buses. Much of the film's comedy lies in that. Listen, it's a lot of fun, and as I was alluding to with the plot, it's a bit of a hollow exercise. There's not much propelling the film forward or any dramatic tension of any kind, so it's more like you're left with these funny set pieces, kind of like an adult Looney Tunes, like I was saying before. To be clear, I did have kind of a magical time because I'm a sick person, but I'm not sure I'm going to revisit this. I'm going to give The Monkey a C+. Next up is Seven Veils. Seven Veils is directed by the great Adam Egoyan. Apologies if I am mispronouncing that name, but he's a fairly prolific filmmaker who has a lot of good films and at least two great ones, being Exotica and The Sweet Hereafter, which earned him a nomination for Best Director at the Academy Awards. One of his creative hallmarks is a gradual unveiling of trauma that often necessitates a confusing first half with an over explanatory second. His script here is intricate in ways that are both commendable and kind of frustrating, like the concealed motivations and traumas are gradually revealed, and much of the intrigue in his films is in this quiet unraveling towards the end. This film throws a lot of information at you, and keeping up with the character dynamics alone is a tough but attainable task. Where the film falters a bit is in an admittedly well orchestrated but kind of thematically overwrought parallel narrative between Salome and the film's events. It shows intellectual prowess and deep coordination to mirror the events so distinctly, and yet I'm concerned it really doesn't ultimately add up to much. Perhaps it would work had it been subtext and not, well, text. Illusion is an interesting thing in any medium, but you cannot call attention to another work without simultaneously asking, what are you adding to that work by alluding to it? Are you complicating it? Are you commenting on it? I'd be really interested if any of you feel differently, but to me, it felt more like a mirror than a complication. That is, the director replicates a story in a modern context and has a lot of fun drawing parallels for ultimately little reward. That being said, the interweaving character dynamics are worth the price of admission here, as is Egoyan's intelligent direction. Many shots are both visually striking and thematically considered. Take one of the opening shots where Seyfried's main character is framed against a projection screen. A video we later find out is from her youth, and her face is bifurcated between the darkness of her motivation and the literal projected light of her past. Even when his themes are overbearing, he has an insightful and innovative way of showcasing them visually, which does a lot to lift up this film's second half. I'm going to give Seven Veils a B+. Next up is Bring Them Down, which is on Mubi right now. So I'm going to try my very best to be light on spoilers for this one. So I may keep this review a bit more vague than I would ordinarily like, but I'll say it's a film that becomes significantly more interesting in its second half. The first half, told mainly from Christopher Abbott's character's point of view, continually builds justifiable indignation until the film is reframed. And as a viewer, you start to question the anger of the first half and see this more as a tragedy of circumstances. It's a film that's interesting enough, but feels fairly standard, especially if you're familiar with like the Hatfield and McCoy story. Did anyone see that movie, The Beast from Spain, that came out in 2022? I think that movie is actually on Movie also, if you were going to check out both of these. And to me, that felt like a far deeper exploration of neighborly rivalry, introducing a complexity of class and generational wealth versus generational work that I pondered for a while after the film. Bring Them Down's ambitions are much simpler, but also by nature just more slight. I genuinely thought both actors were really terrific in this film. Abbott's trademark intensity reaches a violent fever pitch here, and Kyogen's vulnerability brings a sympathetic, emotional angle to the film's pessimistic tone that was really, really needed. I'm not sure there's the acute details or perceptions that a film like this would need to stand out, so it feels more like an exercise in a cold tonal aesthetic, something it leans on maybe a bit too heavily in favor of other attributes. But even so, it's a pretty good watch. I'm going to give Bring Them Down a B-. Next up is One of Them Days, which is a 2025 release, but I think is recently on Netflix, so pretty easy for you all to check out. It's not exactly a long list of competition, but this is by far the funniest movie of 2025 so far. I basically lost my mind during that scene at the loan office. it's littered with hilarious gags about interest rates and a board of people who can't pay back their loans. There's something about how this movie takes a very simple concept and explodes it into a funny SNL sketch, except almost all of the scenes are funnier than SNL has been in like a generation. Keke Palmer has proven time and time again that she's one of the most dynamic screen presences in modern times, and here is certainly no exception. SZA, in what I think is her acting debut, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but she is no stranger to the humor as well. It's hard not to mention this film and Friday in the same sentence, because I highly doubt they weren't influenced by the Friday films while making this. I don't have a tremendous amount more to say about this, except it's just hilarious, and the actors have great chemistry, and it leans really heavily into the absurdity of being broke in our stupid as hell gig economy. I'm going to give One of Them Days a B. Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. This is a much more focused and mature film than its predecessor. It has one large action sequence where the original had numerous. It's much more interested in process, like the nuts and bolts of a heist, instead of that shit-talking masculine fallout that was most of the first film. What sacrifices that sense of badassery or engagement that made the original a fun checkers match? There's more time for the characters, even if that essentially boils down to the same alienated, existential thrill seeking this genre has been reckoning with since Melville. But it adds to an essential pathological undercurrent I frankly could have done without. I know it may seem odd that I'm actually arguing for a film to be dumbed down and dispel of the mechanics that make good screenwriting, especially coming off my complaints about Warfare. But like, I don't know, man. The first film was just really, really cool. And this felt more like a drag, almost like a gritty reboot of a fun action movie that took itself just seriously enough without going overboard. Mainly, its white knuckle tension is really, really great. It's just too sporadically utilized. I'll give Den of Thieves 2 a C+. And that's it for a couple of movies that we missed so far in 2025. Were you able to check any of these films out? Let me know in the comments, and we will see you next time.